Welcome back to my YouTube channel. The moment my mother-in-law overheard a casual conversation about me buying a house, something must have snapped inside her. Within a week, she had put their family home up for sale, without consulting anyone, not even her own husband. She didn't ask if I needed help moving, didn't congratulate me, didn't even bother pretending to be happy. Instead, she decided my achievement was her opportunity. Suddenly, my personal milestone became her fresh start. And not just hers. Apparently, she'd informed the entire extended family that I was buying their new forever home, as if I had announced a group migration instead of a personal investment. She walked around bragging to distant relatives and old neighbors, saying things like, "Finally, after all these years, we'll be moving to a modern house. My son and his wife will take care of us." I didn't know whether to be annoyed or impressed. The audacity was almost artistic. On the day of the inspection, the day I had been waiting for with nerves and excitement, she showed up like she owned the place. Not alone, of course. She brought backup. My sister-in-law, her husband, 2 cousins I barely spoke to, and even an uncle who only ever texted my husband when he needed money. They marched into the driveway like a parade, smiling and waving as if I had invited them for a grand tour. I could see the real estate agent's confusion as my mother-in-law loudly declared, "This is our future home," before I could even greet anyone. They didn't wait to be let in. They just followed me through the door like an overconfident tour group that had already paid for the package. My sister-in-law immediately began checking the kitchen cabinets, while her husband tested the recline on the living room couch as if he was evaluating furniture options. One cousin opened the backyard sliding door and yelled, "Perfect for Sunday BBQs?" I hadn't even signed the papers yet, and they were already planning family reunions. My mother-in-law clasped her hands together dramatically and said, loud enough for the neighbors across the street to hear, "We can finally live in a new house." As if she had personally survived years of hardship waiting for me to rescue her, she walked into the master bedroom, looked around with approval, and said, "This will be perfect for me and your father-in-law. You two can take the smaller one." I genuinely thought she was joking, until I realized no one else was laughing. They were serious. My sister-in-law was already discussing curtain colors, and one cousin suggested knocking down a wall to open up the space for all of us. That's when it hit me. They didn't see this as my home. They saw this as a group upgrade. Their entitlement was so outrageous that I actually burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full, uncontrollable laugh that echoed down the hallway. They froze, confused, as if I had misunderstood the script. My mother-in-law frowned and asked, "What's so funny?" I wiped my tears and said, "This house isn't big enough for delusions." They looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. My mother-in-law crossed her arms, clearly offended, and said, "Well, where else do you expect us to go? We already sold our house." The audacity of that statement nearly knocked me over. She had made a life-altering financial decision based on pure assumption, and now she expected me to take responsibility for it. My husband stood there wide-eyed, just as blindsided as I was. His mother turned to him as if appealing to logic. "Tell her it makes sense. Families should live together." He opened his mouth, closed it again, and finally said, "Mom, this isn't your house." Silence fell. Heavy, awkward, glorious silence. She blinked at him, genuinely confused. "But, she's your wife." "Exactly," he replied. "She's my wife, not your landlord." She gasped like he had physically struck her. The cousins shuffled uncomfortably. The real estate agent pretended to inspect a closet to avoid witnessing the drama. And there we were, standing in the foyer of the house I hadn't even bought yet, debating whether or not I was obligated to house an entire lineage just because I signed a mortgage. I took a slow breath, letting the absurdity of the moment settle, and then said calmly, "This house was never meant for anyone but me." My mother-in-law scoffed. Still clinging to her fantasy, "You're being selfish. Family takes care of family." I didn't flinch. Exactly. Which is why I'm taking care of my family, me and my husband. Not 3 extra households. Her face shifted from shock to indignation to bargaining within seconds. She tried to soften her tone, reaching for sympathy. "We don't need much. Just 1 bedroom and access to the kitchen." "So, a house?" I replied. "You need a house." She hesitated. "Well, yes," I smiled. "Great. Then go buy one." You'd think I had spoken in an alien language. They all stood there, processing the concept that my success did not equal their entitlement. My husband slipped his hand into mine, silently signaling his alignment. It was the first time I'd ever seen his mother speechless, and I savored it. The real estate agent finally emerged from his fake inspection tour and asked, "So, shall we proceed with the paperwork?" I turned to him, still smiling, and said, "Yes, but let's make one thing clear. This house comes with 0 roommates." They left in a flurry of offended whispers and dramatic sighs, no longer marching like they owned the place, but shuffling like children who'd just been denied candy at the store. My mother-in-law paused at the door, as if expecting me to change my mind at the last second and call them back in. I didn't. I simply gave her the same smile she had worn when she assumed ownership of my future, and watched her realize it was never hers to take. A week later, I officially closed on the house. No surprise visitors, no entourage. Just me, my husband, a set of keys, and peace. Not the kind bought with silence, but the kind earned through boundaries. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. I would never apologize for building a life that others had the audacity to lay claim to, because buying a house didn't just make me a homeowner. It made me something far more powerful, someone who finally chose self-respect over obligation.